I'm here with Steve Lawry from the International Center for Forestry Research. And your role there, Steve, I understand, is Director of Equity, Gender, and Tenure Research.
That's right.
It's the program that they have.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Then maybe you can tell us a little bit about why are tenure rights so crucial to the success of reforestation projects?
Well, tenure rights, when they're strong, enable people who live in forests and or live in rural areas, live in landscapes, have farms. They really need clear, secure rights to land and forests if they're going to be able to invest, if we expect them to invest in restoration initiatives in ways that they're going to realize the benefits of those initiatives. So it's a very basic thing. You know, if you own a house and you rent it out, you're going to expect to have some control over that house. You're going to expect to get the rent, and the rent gets paid. You're going to realize the benefits of that asset, that asset, which in the case of land is, you know, agricultural land and forests. And so it's very much an incentive issue. And we expect people, and we hope that people in managing forests, they really must make long-term investments. They must keep the land in forests instead of converting it to agriculture, on the expectation that they'll realize, you know, meaningful environmental and social and financial benefits from that. So it's really about people being connected to places where over the long term they can invest, realize benefits in ways that improve the environmental outcomes.
Right, and so it's important for investors, it's important, of course, for smallholders or for people who are using the land.
That's right.
But we know it's a complex issue. Could you talk or address a little bit some of the complexities about people actually being given tenure or proof of tenure? Talk a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, one of the difficulties is that most people who live in areas that are covered in forested areas have very weak rights, okay, around the world, in the developing world, but also in the global north. People tend not to have strong rights to forested land, okay? And so land is held by the state. It's administered directly by the state. People are regulated sometimes very aggressively in how they use the forest. These are sort of born historically out of sort of conservation goals, sometimes out of sort of the notion that the crown owns the forests, and it goes way back in Europe to the medieval era. These are the king's hunting grounds and all of that. And so, you know, there hasn't been an evolution of of understanding of the social context and the social benefits and the livelihood benefits of forests. And there's been a lack of trust of people. You know, the state hasn't trusted people to manage forests sustainably. But people, in the absence of rights, have very few incentives. They have no really ability to protect the local forests from encroachers, people who come outside, timber companies. And in fact, state land policies have often favored timber extraction enterprises on sort of 20 or 25-year concessions than the rights or interests of local people. And so, in a sense, I mean, the argument is that if you give communities clear rights to forests, they will manage them better. And we're seeing cases around the world in countries like Nepal, Guatemala, Mexico, and others that said, okay, it really hasn't worked, you know, state ownership of forests. In Nepal, we're losing forests from the hillsides. We're having horrific problems of soil loss and disasters, flood-based disasters. They kind of gave up and gave forest rights to communities about 25 years ago, so that today, for instance, there are 20,000 registered community forest user groups. We have clear rights to forests, and we find that they're investing in forests. The enterprises that they're investing in are generating very positive dividends in terms of livelihoods and income that tends to be well distributed because all community members have an ownership stake in those forests. And so if you're a co-owner, then the expectation is as well, you're going to benefit. And so we're seeing kind of a revolution in forest management that's community-centered. And it's very, very exciting. And a lot of our research these days is looking at, well, what exactly happens when communities get clear forest rights in terms of investment, local investment, outside investment, connecting to supply chains and so on.
That is very exciting. That is interesting to hear. Thank you very much, Steve, for telling us about this issue, which is a very important issue.
Thank you. Thank you, Augusta.